Hey, it's Pat Murphy Racy. It's official. Sony is going to make a 300 2.8 G Master lens. Let's get into it. So obviously there's huge advantages of having a 300 2.8 versus a 400 2.8 or a 7200 2.8. For one thing, you get a whole lot different bokeh at great distance. You can pull things in closer without having all the bulk and weight of a 4, but having real reach of a 3, but still remaining at 2.8 for low light sports and things like that. Now, the obvious advantage of a 300 2.8 is for sports photographers. So let's look at what sports will be impacted by this new lens coming into different fields of play. Basketball is the season we're in right now, and long down court basketball is the 300 2.8 just owns that. It's forever. So basketball is going to benefit greatly. Volleyball, same thing. Climbing up in the stands and getting even with the net and being able to shoot those spikes, looking at the faces of them spiking is fantastic. Wrestling is always a crazy low light, bad light sport that is greatly assisted by a 300 2.8. Football, especially high school football and small college football, is going to really benefit from a 300 2.8. Baseball, especially Little League and high school ball, using a teleconverter there would be great. Softball, same thing, a little bit shorter field, easier to cover the entire field rather than just the infield in softball with a 300. Lacrosse, same thing, like field sports, you're going to want to use a 1.4 maybe, but you're going to be able to do great with that. Soccer, same thing. Track and field, same thing. Rodeo, polo, all the equine sports, jumping, all that stuff. That's going to be great. Covering the Kentucky Derby, it's a fantastic lens for that 300 2.8. Dirt track racing often happens at night. So when you don't have a basketball floor reflecting up into players' faces and instead you get dirt at night under lights, this is where you want a 300 2.8 for sure. Motocross, some of the tracks are really small and tight, a lot of tight turns. MotoGP, fabulous lens for MotoGP. But there's other things that you'd want to use a 300 2.8 for, not just sports. So people are really quick to say it's a sports lens, but it's really not. It's very helpful for photojournalists, newspaper photographers of all kinds. It's great for senior portraits when you want to blow out that background just a little bit more than your 7200 can do. Wedding photographers love the 300 2.8 because it's light and small. It's more compact than a 4, a lot less expensive, obviously. It's really good for those low light or even candlelit weddings. Fashion photographers love the 300 2.8. You can't always be where you want to be, and if you're stuck at a balcony looking down, 300 2.8 can bring things really nice and tight where you can really see the clothing. In politics, campaigns, the White House, 300 2.8 has always been a staple lens for anyone that's shooting politics. Remotes for everything, not just sports, inaugurations, all kinds of huge events. Higher education, people that work in higher ed, they need every lens possible for everything they do. Here's some advantages of a 300 2.8 over other options. Number one, it's easy to hand hold this lens. You can hand hold it all day and not hurt yourself. It's 100 millimeters longer than a 7200 2.8, but it still has the 2.8 aperture. Much more manageable size, easier to pack. It's a much more versatile lens than a 400 2.8 by far because it's 300. It's 100 millimeters shorter. The 300 2.8 GM is going to match up better for people that already own a 600. Having a 6 and a 4 is a little bit duplication. You want to spread out your lenses as much as possible, and doubling them is a good way to do that. So 300 to 600 is double the focal length. So if you have those two, you can use the converters to kind of fill in the gaps. One of the great advantages is you cannot duplicate super tele bokeh without a super telephoto. Because it's 300 millimeter, it's technically a super telephoto. At 2.8, you can get a look that is not possible, and you can isolate your subject against a busy background very easily in anything that you're shooting. I believe very strongly that this new 300 2.8 GM is going to draw new Sony converts because it's approachable. It's going to be easier for them to get in, especially with the Alpha 1 in the mix. The 300-2.8 matches up really well with the 7200 2.8, and it also shares the same teleconverters. This is really, really important. It just makes the whole system more versatile, the one lens system of Sony. The addition of a 300 prime at 2.8 is going to add not new lenses, it's going to add one new lens, but it's going to add new fields of view that have not been possible before now. What am I talking about? Well, for one thing, if you are using the 300 2.8 on the Alpha 1, which many people will do this, if you punch in and do the 1.5x zooming on the sensor, you're going to end up with a 450mm 2.8 lens. Now, a lot of people, this is going to be all they'll ever need. That's a really, really long lens and still fast. You've not lost any light. If you, though, add the 1.4 converter, you go to 420mm f4. If you punch in on top of that, you're going to get 630mm f4. If you're using the 2x converter on the 300 2.8 GM, you're going to get a 600mm 5.6. And finally, if you add the 2x and you punch in, you're going to be at 900mm 5.6 without any light loss from the additional 1.5x. Now remember, on the Alpha 1, if you do this, you're going to still end up with a 21 megapixel file, which is almost the same size as what an A9 II gives you. So it's a really, really neat, incredibly versatile lens. Now, when are we going to be able to buy this thing and actually use it? Sony is saying early 2024, which is why they're calling this a technology announcement rather than a product announcement. So sorry for that, but I think it will be worth the wait. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Pat Murphy-Racy, Sony Artisan of Imagery.